Welcome to the session, and today I'll open a little bit different perspective, why everyone should hack or should learn to hack. So let me ask you a question. How do you defend your organization? Do you think that there is maybe a tool or a few or maybe 10 that would secure different aspects of infrastructure and your organization? Maybe there are trainings. Yes, those aspects are right. Some of them will help you to defend your organization. But let me ask you this. How would you hack your organization? So what's happening in your mind right now? You're thinking maybe, this is interesting. I know that there is a security guard that is going for lunch during the lunch hour, and secretary is there on her own, on reception. And now maybe I can walk in and ask her to let me inside because I'm meeting someone, or maybe ask her to print resume because you're going for an interview, yeah? And that USB stick might have a malicious code. What's happening? You're actually enumerating vulnerabilities of organization, and you're getting yourself into a hacker mindset. So when I ask you that everyone should learn to hack, I'm not asking you to do anything malicious. Don't get me wrong. Hacking anything or anyone is illegal, and you need to have a specific setup to do that. When I'm asking you to get into your hacker mindset, I'm asking you to think like a hacker so you can identify where are the flaws and how to protect them, how to defend them. So is hacking bad? Well, hacking on its own is not bad. Hacking is just figuring out how things work or how they shouldn't work and try to see what else can be done there. So hackers actually driven by curiosity and persistence. And this is what makes it very interesting for them to pursue their attacks. So, not understanding the cybersecurity creates actually paralyzing fear. Not understanding security makes us kind of not wanting to talk about this. And maybe not this particular crowd, because obviously you're curious about it, but in general, right? So, but instead of being paralyzed by this fear, or being immobilized even by it, let's embrace it. Because without understanding the defense, we cannot understand the offense. And this is why getting into a hacker mindset is important, no matter of your role. But in order to understand what hackers do, we want to understand also their psychology. What drives them? And for that, let's take a look a little bit about the history and what's driven hackers from, let's say, late 90s. In late 90s, beginning of 2000s, it was more about ego, defacing websites, hacktivism. So that's when everything just began. In early 2000, when Web 2.0 came out, we already started to see SQL injections, data theft, denial of service. And this is where firewall tools became effective. Now moving on to cryptocurrency era. So here we already see a scale, cybercrime as a business, ransomware, everything as a service, ransomware as a service, and everything you can imagine. This is still high risk for cyber criminals, but it's already making them a lot of money. And in 2020s, we're moving on to the next stage. This is where cyber criminals finding how to make more money with less risk. And here we see attacks such as software supply chain attack, different cloud attacks like deploying malicious containers and everything, and also, not surprising, weaponizing AI. So by understanding what is their goal and how they're trying to invade in our systems, we can understand also how to defend those systems. Let's talk a little bit about software supply chain attacks. What are those? You might have heard already about Kaseya, it's ransomware, but how it's actually being done. So software supply chain attack is when, in a nutshell, an attacker embeds a malware, a malicious code, somewhere within the process of the software, somewhere in the software, and uses that trusted source to deploy their malicious code into their targets. In case of SolarWinds, that's when the trusted software with the update deployed malicious code all over the customers. More than 18,000 customers, over nine government agencies. There's so much impact that I think they're still identifying all the consequences from that. And similar attacks happening all over. So you may hear ransomware, but it might still be a software supply chain attack when they're using it. Target example here is also supply chain attack, but slightly different. They stole credentials of the third-party vendor, and this is how they got into the system and stole data. So this is one of the prominent attacks that we see. Now, let's talk a little bit about AI. There are a lot of hype. Is it hype or is it reality? So I think it's a little bit of both. But AI today is the fastest growing technology, and it's the most disruptive technology of our time. It's a tectonic shift in technology that opening a plethora of tangible use cases and opportunity for commercialization that we can use and we can we can use it in so many different cases. But what it does, it also expands the attack surface of our software. So by weaponizing AI, attackers can perform their malicious activities. For example, they're already hiring AI specialists and machine learning specialists that develop malware that helps avoid from detection systems. They also operationalizing the exploits because the vulnerability exchange is at very high rate right now. So everything is transparent. And what they do, they're using machine algorithms to use those exploits and deploy them. We also see aspect of supply chain attacks, software supply chain with AI. This is where the Trojans are embedded in a learning model. And when specific prompts are being called out, then it executes specific actions. And it creates different results. And of course, we all heard, or most of us at least, about data poisoning. ChatGPT also used to actually refine the malware and make phishing emails more personal and more realistic. So those are just two examples that are prominent, and I would like you to think about it. So whatever software we deploy or we develop, we want to think how attacker would misuse it potentially. And this is where we're getting into the hacker mindset. So let's talk a little bit about kill chain. Where can we actually take actions in the attack kill chain? I know it's very small, I'm sorry, small screen, but I'll go. There are stages. The most first stage and the most time-consuming stage is reconnaissance. So during reconnaissance, the better recon, the better the attack success might be. So for example, let's take LastPass breach. Have you heard about LastPass breach? Do you remember how they actually got into the system? No? Okay, so they stole credentials from a DevOps engineer, senior engineer. Yeah? So, but how did they stole? So actually, this is a very interesting phase because we can identify where are the flaws in organization potentially. Was it a phishing email? Did we maybe our spam filters didn't work well enough. Maybe there's a training need or reminder, right? But in this case, it wasn't a phishing email. In this case, it was actually a supply chain attack, a supply chain to steal credentials. they did enough recon on that particular senior DevOps engineer to know that on that machine, on his personal machine, there was installed a player. And that player needed an update. And they got their malicious code into the open source of that update. That developer downloaded that update on his machine, and it deployed the keylogger, and then the stall credentials. And actually, this is a very interesting case because what would LastPass do? Yeah, well, except not letting maybe them use the personal machine. But in this case, we need to understand that this kind of attacks can come from different ways, and supply chain attacks can be very tricky. And here, they didn't detect it for a while because, of course, they thought that the actual person was accessing the systems until they detect. So reconnaissance is important. And then we have weaponization. So in this case, they weaponized the third-party update of the software that engineer download to their system, and they weaponized it. They installed the keylogger. So the delivery is through the software, and then the next stage is exploitation and installation. And they achieved on their objectives. So why I'm showing you this? Because at every stage, we can implement, if we think what attacker could do at every stage, we could implement different controls, detective and prevention methods that can help us detect that. But without understanding this, it will be very difficult to deploy and implement those controls. So getting into a hacker mindset, we think like a hackers, and we try to identify how it can be prevented. So hackers evolve us through the lessons that we learn. So we know different attacks that happen. I brought up just a few examples for the time being, and they help us to evolve to harden our systems. Whatever hacking is for you, there are some maybe technical colleagues, technical people here and colleagues who would like to go more into maybe offensive testing, penetration testing, and so on. Some people don't go into that, but what I want to say that it can come in different levels. It can come at the technical level. It can come at the research level. So as long as you learn, as long as you research and try to understand, no matter what your role is, it will be easier for you to also understand how to defend those systems. So let me bring you to 4 points to take away. So first of all, learn technology. We have right now new technology, not completely new, but let's say AI, right? So learn how it works. Tomorrow maybe will be something else. Understand how it works, because by knowing how it works, we can understand also how it can be broken. AI in this example is just lines of code, right? Like any other software. And by understanding what's in that software, we can also understand how to make it secure. Research. Research how exploits been done. So maybe it's of course, a white paper, but maybe it's just like a little bit digging around. You heard about breach. I gave example of LastPass. Basically, everyone talks about, the data was stolen and so on. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you may actually find out how things done and what to learn from that particular example. We have plenty of examples. So do some research and learn about it to understand how hackers operate and how we can prevent those systems. Learn safely. If you go into offensive site, make sure that you use Sandbox. Make sure you use tools like Hack the Box and so on that provide a safe environment to learn. CTF, Capture the Flag, is an amazing way to get yourself into this hacker mindset in a safe way and understand how it works. And the last but not least, you do the research, you learn, implement it. Implement in your personal devices. at your home devices, at your work, implement the measures, talk to your colleagues, talk to your team, and see how can we improve our systems, how can we make them more secure in order to make everything secure and make basically attacks harder to perform. With that, I thank you for your attention. Feel free to contact me on the social media, and thank you for joining me here today.